Hi everybody, welcome to Talking Teal, Season 8, Episode 3. I'm Yon Cohen.
I'm Mimi Torchin.
And we're Lady Parts TV. Welcome back to Talking Teal. And again, every time I think there won't be much to talk about, there ends up being a shitload to talk about.
Please don't write any more interesting emails, okay?
No, please do. I love your interesting emails. And even though it's a lot of work, it's also very rewarding. Before we get started, even with the charities, I did promise David, who tuned in live to your interview on the locker room, but didn't get his question answered. He's saying, for Mimi, not related, but I wanted to ask, and this is going to be very short, people, don't worry. Sorry, David. Not related, but I wanted to ask you what you thought of our British soaps. Have you ever seen them? Do you have a favorite if you have? And do you like any of our characters or storylines? Would be interested to hear an American soap expert POV on British soaps.
Well, your question is going to be longer than my answer, David, because I have never been able to watch the soaps. I mean, we get them. We have the last 20 years or so. But not...
I don't think still that in America you can get Coronation Street.
No, maybe not.
No, I don't think so.
They might stream somewhere.
Maybe you have BritBox.
PBS used to do them.
By the way, the Blue Jays again, yes.
Yes, the Blue Jays again. So I never really watched them. I'd watch every once in a while an episode I'd watch on PBS just to see what it was like. And they all seemed pretty much like soaps to me. I got the hiccups. Mm-hmm. They had the same look to them, and I love British actors, so I probably would have admired them. And I know a lot of famous people were on soaps.
And we have watched Holby City a little bit. Which
we watched like the primetime soaps for sure.
Yeah.
But I was very, very busy, and when I was working in the soap industry, which I was for a long time, even before I wrote a whole magazine by myself for quarterly for 6 years. Before I did Soap Opera Weekly. So we had 12, 13, 14 soaps in those days.
So you had your fill.
I didn't have time really to watch any other soaps, but I'm sure that they're wonderful because I think that except for some comedy, which I don't really relate to, Benny Hill and things like that, I think British drama is... aces.
And I just want to say, please don't send us a bunch of emails saying you have to watch Charity on Emmerdale. We are aware of it. We tried it. Not our cuppa. Sorry. I know that it's very beloved. We didn't click.
Yeah.
Okay, so our charities today are very important to us Americans. If you're an American, please consider.
I think they're important to the world.
If you're not an American, please. I mean, you're not going to be able to contribute actually in this case because I think you have to be an American to donate. But very quickly, we would like you to, if you can, support
the Biden-Harris campaign, or as I like to call it, the Harris-Biden campaign, and Amy McGrath's campaign to beat Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. Got to get rid of these people. Got to get rid of them. Got to get our people in. Save the country. Save the world.
And before you say, "Oh, why do you have to mix politics?" And this is beyond politics.
This is not politics.
The existence of our planet and
our
people,
post office. Buy stamps, please.
Please buy stamps. And if you are able, get your absentee ballot early on and drop it off at the Board of Elections rather than send it.
If Trump's model works, there will be dictators all over the Western world.
There already are very emboldened leaders all over the world. I'm sure that some of you who are watching us are not happy with your leadership either. So we have to support one another. This is a global time, and people are actually dying because of the decisions that these people are making. So that's it. We're going.
If you're not an American and you do still feel like giving some money, give it to any of your favorite charities.
Yes, or give it to your own leaders who are progressive to beat your bad leaders if you have them. Okay, so the amount of people who said I wasn't going to email this week, or I'm only going to email a very short email because I don't have anything to say, this is boring, and then you go on and on and on and on, telling all these things.
Like me.
Yeah, so I loved it because I ended up having 21 pages of edited comments from your, I'm just going to send a quick email because I don't have anything to say. So
who was it that said that she wasn't writing at all?
Lily.
Yeah.
And then at the end of a very long email, well, not a Lily long email, but nevertheless, she writes, well, I guess there goes my no talking to your email. But I love it because I've received quite a few comments from people, both new people who wrote and people who just commented on the vlog or Talking Teal, who said that you just really enjoy all of your commentary, all of the commentary from the contributors and from us. So
spot on.
Yeah,
even if I don't agree with you, your observations are really interesting.
And your perspectives, bringing in all sorts of points of view that we would never have come up with. So that's great. And thank you, by the way, for everybody who thanked us for doing this. And thank you for participating and watching. So, Enemy of the State, written by Marcia Gardner, head writer. So what must have been important, and directed by Beck Cole, a double female team.
Whammy.
Yes. And you had obviously a lot to say, and we will delve in deeply into the various topics and characters. But before we start, I want to read out a comment that kind of talks about, like, an overview of everything that we're going to talk about. And when we talk about them, we'll talk about them from many different directions. But this comment is actually mine, and I wrote it down
Wow.
because I woke up in the middle, like at 5 a.m. Kind of angry a little bit. It was I think a day or two after watching the episode, and I hadn't even read any of your emails yet. So I just had to put down how I felt about it at the time, because there were some things that disappointed me or pissed me off, and I had to say it. So I'm calling this episode "Teal is the New Orange," because to me it was
kind of a dead giveaway.
It was an Orange is the New Black episode, and if they didn't want to invoke that in me, they shouldn't have done this first thing that they did, which is, and here I go. When the story about the gross food started, it was obviously very reminiscent of the one on Orange is the New Black, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt that stories like that are probably more prevalent around prisons than not. And I also figured it would have been hard to find another issue around which the show could rally all of the prisoners with rage against the management. But then, why did they have to show the plastic food bag?
That was it.
That immediately made the show look like it was just copying the Orange story, and it made it seem so cheap. It was just, I mean, really, if they didn't want to invoke that in me, why give me a frame by frame, this is what we're doing. Now, another issue that I have, and I'm going to give you all the issues that I have. Anne is such a cliche of a terrible manager. Anne is Figueroa, and Will is Caputo. Will is the good guy, but he apparently has no power against her, and he gives up way too easily. Isn't there some sort of a law that should ensure Reb should be able to get his HRT? He did say it's prescribed medicine.
Mm-hmm.
If so, why doesn't he fight for what he knows is right? Isn't he now all about making it right for the women in the prison? And speaking of which, why...
And the men.
Yes. And speaking of which, why isn't he on their side when it comes to the hunger strike? He wants to do right by them so much, and he's okay with them eating stuff that's worse than dog food. That was very much a put off for me.
They'll
Well, again, we'll get to all of this stuff, but I just need to put this out there, and then we'll talk about each and every one of these subject matters. Smiles now seems almost soulless. Without exploring the true trauma she experienced, it just makes her look mean and takes away one of our favorite characters, just like the guards on Orange is the New Black, who are now, became all very mean. Also, just like Vera, she stood side by side with these women during the siege. It was one woman who caused it, and the rest of them were victims just like she was. For her to be so mean to all of them now is over the top. Jake is also being a letdown with insisting on using the she pronoun for Reb, even when Lou reminds him Reb is a he. What the fuck? He is bisexual, for crying out loud. Shouldn't he have a little more of an evolved approach to LGBT matters? And yes, Rachel made a very important comment, but I think it applies to Will and others, but not in this case. We'll get to it. Vera knows about the hunger strike. Why isn't she advocating for the women? And speaking of the hunger strike was the climax of a 3-episode build-up, but fizzled out so quickly and uneventfully. Why did they even bother? I guess they achieved the main 4 goals they set out to achieve: to show how obnoxious Anne was, to intercept Reb's testosterone again, to show how ready a leader Judy is, and to show how quickly Allie has fallen for Judy. Much more on that in a minute. Also, all the prisoners are way too nice at the moment, doing everything democratically. I mean, I like it, but it's so not Wentworth. So now, much like on Orange, the prisoners are all going to have to struggle with horrid, greedy, and corrupt management? That's a story of the year? I'm tired of it already, because I've seen it already, and it's just started.
It wasn't even good there.
Exactly. It was the ooh of there. Allie might have the look and the pose, but when it comes down to it, I just am not sold on her as top dog. I like her style, I'm just not sure it would fly in the normal world of Wentworth. And it seems like despite her new position, she's still not getting much story. We didn't see her arc in transitioning into the top dog, so it's not working so well. The least we should be getting is some other emotional arc, meaningful and worthy of her and of Kate Janko. Also, why would Judy assume the lines in the call center aren't being recorded and listened to? And worse yet, why aren't the lines in the call center being recorded and listened to? I mean, every time I call customer service, they tell me the call might be recorded for customer whatever quality assurance. So a call center from prison wouldn't be taped? I mean, really. And also, no Sheila yet. And worse, she might not be coming in until episode 5 or 6. So every time I'm not seeing her, I end up feeling disappointed for all the time being wasted.
This is bad.
Finally, from the preview, we see the next episode is going to be pretty much completely devoted to the freak. Great. So, now I'm gonna put myself aside and get to you because, I mean, I know this was I had to indulge myself a little bit because usually I don't do this, but I just felt very strongly. And not to say that the episode was shit. I mean, there were some great things. It's just that it felt so low stakes, so filler, so again, not Wentworth, not worthy of Wentworth. So, and then we'll talk about everything, okay? All right. So let's start with some of your impressions of the whole episode, starting with Sam.
Sam says, I can't believe they didn't say anything about Joan. Still not interested in Ruby in the slightest, but no read of this episode either. I get it was all a Bryant setup. She seems okay, but a whole episode pretty much? Even Vera was pretty much skipped over this episode. I mean, it was good, Wentworth always is, but it didn't feel as utilized as other episodes, and I would have thought they wouldn't want to waste a moment. I pretty much agree with that, except for if you like Mari, and most of you don't anymore, but I still think Susie Porter is wonderful. It was a very big Mari episode.
It wasn't big, Mari. Mari was big last week, but it was
pretty.
I just don't like.
She was pretty prominent this episode. Besides Judy,
I think we're all kind of tired of seeing her storyline, and I'm with you there. I'm tired of seeing her storyline,
but. It wasn't without some interest.
Did you think it was an Orange is the New Black type episode?
Yeah, completely,
right?
Completely. I mean, we stopped watching after the second and third season, maybe third. But it evoked, I mean, the food thing especially with it coming out of those horrible plastic bags and how disgusting it is.
I mean, couldn't they have had a little bit of a more original idea?
I guess not.
It's another prison drama. Those two prison dramas came out at the same time.
Yes, and
compared to one another,
Wentworth managed to distinguish itself completely, and it was kind of the dark. I always thought of it as the grown-up Orange is a New Black, and it's still pretty much that way. But this episode felt very, a word I'm using later again, as I recall, flaccid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Linda says, I like this episode. It was freak-free. And I actually liked that. That was one of the best things about this episode. That it was
we commented on it even.
Yeah, while we were watching it. Yes, all of a sudden I said, hey, did you notice we didn't see Joan? Yeah. Okay, Lauren?
Lauren says, well, I have to say that my overall feeling that I was left with after that episode was dissatisfied. I love Wentworth and enjoy the episodes, of course, but honestly, after the punch of the first episode, I must say these past two have felt very lackluster. It may be the focus on Mari, whom I am not so much keen on. Can't quite put my finger on it. As much as I don't care for Joan's story, it did feel weird having an entire episode with no continuity from the last, where she got conked on the head.
But that's because they wanted to devote a whole episode to her next week.
I'm guessing these slower episodes were putting pieces into place for more interesting action later in the season. I would just like to feel more electricity in these episodes. The fact that I feel that they are short, though, tells me how invested I am anyway. Even a slow episode of Wentworth is interesting. Maybe a little dissatisfying, but interesting. And I rather agree with this.
What, that last
Yeah,
yes, definitely. I think
And with everything else she said, too.
I think that the problem is, first of all, yes, it was a fantastic first episode, and then the second one was kind of slow, but that was okay. But I expected the third one to be much more to pick up, and then when it didn't, it was just too. But it's not even that it's slow. I think the problem with a lot of the characters, and when we talk about each and every one of the characters, we'll see why.
Well, and also Judy is brand new. We have no investment in her, and it was just all Judy.
Well, not only that, the parts of it that were Allie, because it was very big on Allie too, but Judy made Allie seem, and again, we'll talk about this extensively.
Like her lapdog.
Yes. So it was, you know, it was, ugh, what are you doing to our characters? You know, what are you doing? I mean, we find, it's not that Allie was not like this before. We just thought she was in a different place, and all of a sudden they're saying, oh, well, actually, maybe not. Lily says, I just wanted to write to you to tell you that I'm not going to write this week. Well, obviously, I have to just write a few comments, but no long talking Teal emails as this week's episode revolved around characters that I don't care about and or dislike. What a wasted episode. The season is already has just 10 episodes, and they waste time on that? No Vera, no Rita, and still no Marta Sheila. We agree. Jane says?
Jane says, oh, and this will bring up something that I wanted to say, but I was waiting anyway. I've watched this episode 4 times.
Wow, Jane.
You are so devoted. Trying to mine real substance from it. Am I the only one? I'm not sure what to think about this episode. Did anything flesh out existing narrative or create any meaty new storylines?
I just want to say, you watched it 4 times. We always watch it a second time before we do this so that we are fresh and I write notes and everything. And usually I'm excited because I see things that I didn't see before. This time I was like, when is it going to be over?
Yeah. Overall, I was really disappointed by it. It left me with that's it? Too many characters to the point where they need to sit out episodes. I don't like that at all. This isn't a daily soap where that conversation can work. Convention, sorry. Yeah, the only thing that became a little clearer to me was that Will is really weak. And that he's just not, going to make it as good.
No, I mean, we got some other stuff. We got again, the new revelations about Allie, which are, and about Anne, and about...
Yes,
but
in this episode...
Yes, in this episode, yes, we got all that stuff. I don't agree. I think we got a lot of stuff about Allie as top dog and how she really is as top dog, and again, more on that. A lot of stuff about Anne and how corrupt she really is, more on that in a minute. New things about Ruby and Mari, but we just don't care about some of them, and the other thing is disappointing.
And it is true about the soap operas, because the soap operas have so many storylines that are not necessarily interlocked, and so many characters. They do have to have their days on the back burner, their months on the back burner. But because
they have like 300 episodes a year.
Right, there's a show every day, and they can do that. Yeah. You can't do that with a show like Wentworth.
Right.
That is only on once a week, and that is then not even, all year long.
Yeah.
Everything has to mean something.
Denise says, this wasn't an action-packed episode, but I loved it all the same.
Oh.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
David,
you're such a rebel.
David is always the anti-comment.
You're such a rebel, but all these were good points. Really did enjoy the episode this week. I found it very layered. It was a really intriguing slow burn, and Judy Bryant is a great addition to the cast. I'd seen a lot of backlash on social media about the episode, so I was shocked when I watched it to see that it was probably the strongest episode for me so far. David. I feel that there is a great deal of impatience, this is an interesting point, with some fans at the moment to get to the firework display. They're not allowing the world building to take place. The reason the fireworks are so spectacular later on is because we've taken the time to get to know the characters and allow new storylines to build to a crescendo. And don't forget, we have 5 new characters to get to know before we start picking them off and blowing shit up. We're in the final stretch now, and every episode is precious. After all, we only have 17 of them left. So I think to some fans, any episode that isn't firing all canon seems like a waste. Patience, please. We're in extremely capable and well-tested hands. Just let it wash over you. It's the best way to enjoy the show. So I think it's some good points there.
Yeah. I know. But again, when you have so few episodes, you want every episode to mean a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I got up to close all the windows in the attempt to
Yes,
stop the
'cause I
fog
see
from
it.
rolling.
There
in.
it is.
There it is. But hopefully we
It's
can
a lot of work
stop
for
it here.
Leron to
It's
make
a lot
us
of work.
visible with
And
the
it
fog.
still looks awful. I'm sorry. All right, Robin says, in general, I think what's missing so far is chemistry. Is it just me? There's no chemistry between any of the characters, not even feeling it between Lou and Reb, although that I disagree.
I disagree with you too.
We lost so many of the characters we were seeded into and invested in that I feel like we're still grieving. I'm not feeling any warm fuzzies for anyone but Boomer. Well, I always have warm fuzzies for Joan, so just waiting for more from her. Sorry, Mimi. I think a lot of the problem, and we'll get to talking about the family, is that there barely is any family left. And yes, I'm tired of Mari. I'm tired of Ruby. I'm tired
I
of
still
Joan.
feel warm fuzzies about Vera, but she didn't.
Oh yes, that's right. And when Rena comes back, that would be great. But this is the third episode that we haven't seen any of her. But in the past, we only saw little snippets. So. It's troubling.
I love Rita, but I don't know that I ever feel warm fuzzies for her.
No, maybe not warm fuzzies.
Vera and Boomer are the warm fuzzy characters.
And Julie wraps it up by saying, the episode felt unfocused, like Allie's top dog leadership style. So, we're going to talk about Allie and her leadership style in a second. But before that, we have to talk about the new kid on the block, practically the star of this episode, Judy Bryant. Played by Vivienne Awosoga. And she got you all very flustered, confused, heated up. But she definitely managed to get you going.
She got your attention.
Yeah. And we're going to start with Ryan.
Ryan, this is a lot, Ryan. I hope I don't start yawning in the middle, which happens to me when I read.
Yes, we know you.
I really enjoyed this episode. My only complaint, it was short. Most of the inmates we have met are at Wentworth for physically assaulting, stealing, drug dealing, murder, robbery, etc. Judy Bryant has done none of those things yet. Judy Bryant has done none of those things, yet she's inside and has less privileges than the others. Judy is young, pretty, educated, a vegan, a hacktivist. Her story was definitely informed by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Judy is socially conscious, an amazing speaker like Kaz was on social justice issues. Judy is able to lead. She is educated and knows history, e.g. Bobby Sands, hunger strikes. She's not intimidated in the prison. Judy is the daughter of an ultra-conservative politician. Makes her activism sweeter. Mm-hmm. Judy is from Hampshire, England, and is played by Vivienne Awosoga, who puts on a convincing British accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can tell.
Is she an Aussie?
I think so. I could tell that there was a...
Interestingly, while Judy was convinced she was only going to be in prison for a short period of time, she decided to dress in teal instantly rather than keep her civvies on. Mm-hmm. This is all well observed.
Yes.
Rita Connors kept her civvies on, particularly her jacket, when she was at Wentworth, and in Prisoner, Connors was notorious for wearing her leather biker jacket. Sonia Stevens also kept her civvies until she was beaten by Juice and the boys. Reb Keene changed from her civvies when she was let out of protection, while Lou changed into teal instantly. According to Anne Reynolds, Judy was a troublemaker in the UK too. Reynolds also worked in the UK. Perhaps there is history. I believe there is. Mm-hmm. Judy had an interesting reception from the inmates. Admired instantly by Zena. And as Boomer put it, she definitely has groupies, which perhaps explains why she was the top dog in the original Prisoner. Didn't know that. Boomer is usually suspicious of new people, but has taken a friendship crush to Judy. This episode was far from boring. It offered us insight as to how the criminal justice system can criminalize protest and criticism of corrupt governments. Most viewers would argue that the other characters might deserve to be imprisoned for their crimes, but the question is, what did Judy Bryant do that was wrong? Assange did not get a happy ending. Will Judy? So it's very interesting. Maybe her story is too close to what's happening, in the world being punished for.
Well, it's exactly why they chose to do it.
Exactly.
And actually, Ryan,
the chipping away of our freedoms by the government. So maybe it made people uncomfortable, and they didn't realize that's one of the things that bothered them so much about it.
I think some people made. You're right, because some people did make a little bit of a note on it, but mostly they didn't. But it kind of creeped into various, like in the, like as a back burner kind of a thing in your brain. And actually, Ryan does pose a question to us. And by the way, Ryan is a guy. The thing is, 95% of the people who write to Talking Teal are women, with the 5% being David. So I always, the default for me is that it's a woman. So I'm so sorry.
We're 80%. Love
90. But yes,
yes, my math is so bad.
I think that, so Ryan poses the question, do we think that Judy does deserve to be in prison? And it would be interesting to hear what all you think, but I think that more importantly, because the question of whether she should be in prison, many people can answer that in various ways, because it's really a kind of a social justice, social consciousness question. There's no doubt to me, again, they emphasize that she's a vegan and all that. There's no doubt to me that she doesn't intend to harm. She thinks she's doing good. She thinks she's doing something important. But most importantly, I think the question is really what this story is allowing us to see is how easily the government strips people when you have this claim of terrorism or national security, you just float that term around, and immediately the person doesn't get to see a lawyer. You can hold them indefinitely.
Patriot
you
Act
can
was
threaten them
one
with
of the worst
rendition.
things that ever happened.
Right. So, and by the way, when Judy says, "Oh, she's so smug, you can threaten me with rendition, but it's illegal," you think it's not done anyway?
Anyway, we certainly found out that it was.
Please. So yeah, that's going to be. It's definitely an interesting, a very interesting, different story to tell.
And it's distressing.
Very. Ryan also has an interesting little trivia from Prisoner. Judy Bryant in the original was a white American lesbian woman who is manipulated into bringing drugs into prison while visiting her lover. The original actress who played Judy Bryant also had auditioned for the role of B. Smith, but could not, quote-unquote, yell right. I don't know what that means. So, interesting. I love this little trivia. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's great.
Diana?
Diana says, our border force / international security department has extraordinary powers, and I doubt in our real world that a threat like Judy would be allowed to mix in general prison population. She'd be in isolation. I also found it jarring that Judy is such a potty-mouthed hothead. I think Boomer would have done better at staying calm and saying nothing when being interviewed. As for yelling and cursing at Anne, how dumb can she be, showing she knows who her real enemy is? Well, I say that a Boomer is not loved for her high intellect. And great.
No, but she's right that Judy, as somebody who is so clever, to talk like that to somebody who's obviously... and you see that when she kind of sits there, when he says, I can do whatever I want to and all that stuff, and then she sits down and she kind of... You see that a lot of it is show. A lot of it is her bravado. And maybe, also being the daughter of a powerful politician, maybe she grew up privileged, feeling like nobody can touch her. So, Robin says, Judy's arrogance is a bit off-putting. I'm actually hoping she gets knocked down a few pegs. I have a feeling she will.
Oh, yes.
Rachel?
Enter Judy Bryant. She's smart, sophisticated, and beautiful. She's responsible for releasing damaging information about the Australian and the American governments over her website. She hasn't done the hacking herself, but she has released the information for public consumption. Multinational criminal cases are a quagmire at best, and when they involve national security, they involve multiple agencies, most of whom are not working with each other. The only thing keeping this woman from rendition is the fact that her father is a member of Parliament. Very good point, all very scary.
Lily says, I don't like Judy. She acts as if everything is hers and seems to be kind to the women, especially Allie, only to serve her interests. Again, I think also that's part of the way she was brought up, probably to feel like nothing can touch her because of her connections.
Diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity, yes, it always reminds me of that. David says?
I love her strength and confidence.
Again, always the anti-comment.
No. Other people like her strength and confidence.
No, I love that. I love that David always brings the... But wait, think of it from this perspective.
She is all bravado and front, but deep down I think she's someone who has gotten in way deeper than she ever intended. It's a very good point. She was visibly shaken in the face of torture threats. It's a good job she is so well educated in the law, as anyone who wasn't would probably have been frightened into handing over information.
Not that that's helped her much, by the way.
Yeah. She's incredibly astute and knows how to play the game. She's only young. Maybe it was a case that she started out hacking for fun, then started a ball rolling that she couldn't stop. She seems to be this person out of necessity, not want.
Well,
I don't know exactly what that means.
Well,
that she has to do these things.
Well, I don't know if you mean like that she needed to do it for a reason or just because that's the way she is and she can't help herself. But she didn't seem to me like that. She must have stumbled upon this. Her whole life is, again, they made a point to tell us she's vegan. She has convictions. She's a person of principles. She would be okay sacrificing some of her own comforts for something that's a better purpose. So I think that this is actually very much in alignment with who they're presenting her to be.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Kathy says, I haven't yet decided quite if Judy is good or evil. She could be patriotic or treasonous. Time will tell. I think that's always the case when it comes to these questions. Is it treason or is it patriotism? Are you doing it for the people, or are you compromising something more important? That's why it's, should be...
Well, that's why it's always so scrutinized and why people are always in such hot water when they do it.
Yes, it's just that whistleblowers are important. And in fact, whistleblowers also have some protections, but I guess she's not... Again, governments... It's so easy for governments to... if the information is damaging to them, to use their powers to shut people up.
I'm trying to think. Did we get an idea of what it was she released?
No.
So we don't really know what the story is.
Yeah.
Jane says, now I am more worried that Judy is going to get some people killed for being so righteously aggressive. Her selfishness is not safe to me. And I said, I feel you, Jane. I wrote that down here. And Allie is really going out on a limb for her.
Right. That's going to be
it makes me anxious, and it kind of weakens her a little.
What? Are you kidding? Kind of weakens her a little? Yeah. Hold on. We have a whole thing about Allie and what this means about Allie. But before we do, tell us what Lauren said.
Lauren says, Judy was a welcome new inmate. I like that she's not afraid of anyone and obviously smart. The whole crowd outside totally gave me V vibe. V vibes.
Oh, V vibes.
V vibes. After B was returning from killing Braden. I suspect that is what made me feel like I was going to like Judy straight away. I did feel a little strange how quickly she became part of the integral conversation about things, almost like there was no welcome to prison type of thing with her entry. I did like that she only had to look at things... I did like that she only had to look at that reporter's card once, and she memorized the number.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, she obviously is good with numbers. Some things I noticed in this episode were that Judy seemed to lead the hunger strike, stirring the others into action, and also managed to get Allie, the top dog, doing her bidding in terms of contacting the reporter. So the writers wanted to make a point here that Judy is an influence and is good at finding ways to get things done. Mm-hmm. The other thing was that Judy apologized to Allie when she knew that Allie had kept her confidence, like she said. So Judy has some humanity and can admit when she got things wrong. I was a little surprised that Judy would not have been checking out every cell in her block for listening devices, considering the level of espionage she is involved in. Yes, she checked her cell, but certainly she would have considered her shared living quarters as possibly other inmate cells. The writers went out of their way to show how smart she is, so this did seem a little blind on Judy's part.
Well, I don't know if I would have thought that other prison mates would have their cell bugged, but
Allie is the top dog, so she might have thought she'd go to her.
Anyway, again, the fact that
it should have been on the phone anyway.
Exactly, the fact that she didn't think that the phone lines would be not even for bugging her, but just because the prisoners are making calls to the other world. Don't you think that you should monitor that? But anyway, we're going to talk about Allie next. I just want to say that instantly, first of all, everybody likes her. Zaina calls her hot chocolate. And Ruby and Allie both immediately say that they have an instant friend crush on her. The friend part I think is ridiculous. It's not a friend crush, it's a crush. And it will be interesting to see what happens there, because obviously I think Ruby and Allie now are only friends, so are they going to fight over Judy at some point? Is she going to use their obvious infatuation with her?
Right. Well, also she had some diversity. There's
yeah, she had some diversity. So Allie. I'm gonna read some of the variety of your reviews, but I'm gonna have to end with Julie, whose response to Allie this week blew my mind. But you have a lot to say, and all that stuff is all very, very true. So let's start with Ryan.
Allie's unique top dog style is coming through. She has a way of doing things that is perhaps more democratic and has crew heads for consultation, which is unique. Also, Allie is not a pushover, not intimidated by Bryant when they clash. Fair but firm. Allie is rocking the top dog status. She has previously watched the top dog ships of B, Kaz, and Mari closely. Allie has learned the best management styles for both Kaz and B. Mari offered nothing. I love this episode as it highlighted how negotiations take place among the women.
Okay, so I was wrong. I didn't agree with that one, but it again a valid point, because again, ideally I love her style. I think it's a great style. I just don't see how in a place like Wentworth that could work. But it's her style.
It's worked for the last 3 months.
But it's first of all, I see another danger here, and I'll tell you in a second. But Judy coming in just shows, and the fact that it's 3 months actually is kind of a good time frame for me, because I think, okay, so she shot Brody, everybody's like, whoa, yay, Allie, and so for a while she could float on that fame, and then as soon as somebody who's more powerful, smart, comes in, we see, how easily she just becomes a star fucker.
Well,
Sorry.
She didn't give in to Lou.
No, she didn't. But Lou is a hothead. I mean, again,
yes,
Lou
but Lou is famously scary and a former top dog.
But Allie doesn't. That's not the type of person that she defers to. She defers to, oh, you're a star, you're powerful, you're smart, you're influential, you're amazing, you know your shit. That's the type of person she falls in love with and immediately defers to.
She always
not Lou.
falls in love with the leaders.
Yes. Which I have to give her credit for. At least she falls in love with women who have substance. Yeah, they have substance. She has every right to admire them, but she immediately makes herself small.
Ruby was kind of her exception.
Who?
Ruby.
Oh,
she had a little flame with him.
Yeah.
We don't even know what that status is.
I think that they're just friends at the moment. But Lauren says, I wondered if Allie may be attracted to Judy right away. Yeah, that would be a yeah. Because Judy has that self-confidence that Allie has found so attractive in the past. Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't hate the connection these two may have. I have to say, I see chemistry. I could see that work. Yep. But I'm afraid that it's not going to just be a love story. It's going to be a competition for top dog story. So Rachel says,
I know a lot of folks don't like Allie as top dog, but I do. I think she's trying her best to learn from B and Kaz. She wants to make them proud, and I think so far she has. Let's hope that continues. Putting the women first when she finds out Joan's alive is going to be pretty difficult.
Robin says, her lowering her voice to try to sound tougher is laughable. I'm still not buying her as top dog. We'll see how long she will last.
My turn?
Yes, David.
Kathy. Kathy says, what the hell is going on with Allie? This new person comes in, and right away the two of them are all buddy-buddy. Allie was so quick to trust her, but why? A couple of seasons back, I had said that Allie would be top dog one day. Now I'm thinking it's way too early, and she just doesn't have what it takes. When Allie first came on the show, she was there to be with B. Seems like ever since B died, the writers have been at a loss as to what to do with Allie's character.
I so agree. Now. It's so true. The only good storyline Allie ever had was Bally. Otherwise, it was like she's not a person on her own.
Still, now that she's top dog, they need to give her a stronger storyline.
Absolutely. And David had a very interesting outlook at Allie's journey.
David says that Allie's inherent lack of leadership qualities was laid bare this episode, as she once again relied on the strength of a much more powerful woman to assert control. I can see what the writers are trying to do with her, and it's great to see such a likable character at the front and center. But Allie isn't meant for such a role. Her character between season 4 and 7 was weak, dependent, and passive. So whilst enjoyable, this sudden ascent to the top of the ranks doesn't feel truthful to what we know of her character. That dependency on strong women saw her allow a brand new prisoner to dictate the course of action. She allowed a complete stranger to influence her decision-making. Allie is a much more effective cog in the machine than driver at the wheel. I really enjoyed her scene with Ruby. Allie is always supportive and nurturing, which makes me think that she would be much more suited to peer worker role, if it wasn't already so perfectly filled by Boomer. Listen, I really enjoy Kate Jenkinson, and I really like Allie. And I think they're starting to use her better this season, even if it's not 100% authentic to her character.
Well, unfortunately, now we're getting to the part that's more authentic to her character because she's, dropping her leadership.
Her guard a little bit, but
no. She's dropping. She's now showing again that she's not the powerful person that she was pretending to be for 3 months. It was mostly really just riding this. She did something out of complete anger and desperation, and we never learned.
Well, we have seen her do things. I mean,
what? Just the Lou finger thing.
Well, that's a pretty darn big thing.
Which I thought, okay, so now, but again,
then she seems like just one of the girls.
Yeah,
she doesn't have any
authority.
Authority. It doesn't feel like it, and she doesn't seem to be separated at all from.
Yeah,
she seems like just part of the gang.
Exactly, and even though that could be her style, that she wants to be approachable, that she as she said, she wants. I mean, we obviously see she does things more democratically. She's not, but honestly, why didn't she come up with the hunger strike idea to begin with? It's so basic. You don't have to know a lot of history or watch a lot of news to know that a hunger strike is something that people who are completely powerless can do in such a state. To go and just say, really, Miles, what's up with the food? It's not leadership. Do something. So to me,
really, Miles, what's up?
I
don't know, Allie. What's up?
To me, it's that is either showing really what a useless leader she is, or the writers just really, again, wanting to serve a certain story. So. Jane says, so nice to see her confident and strong. Can we have a new love of her life, please, and not Judy Bryan? I actually could. I mean, again, I can see it with Judy, but I don't think it will be a real relationship because ultimately I think Judy is too powerful and Allie will end up being wiped with the floor with. So.
Well, it won't be Sheila, I don't think.
No, I think it's Judy. Oh, you mean in terms of her love story? No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not going to be Sheila. All right, tell us what Julie said. And actually, I have one last thing to say.
I'm not sure I can.
Yeah, Julie, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, why don't you read it?
Okay, now this is cold reading, so pardon me. Judy, a possible top dog usurper? Top dog fail. These mistakes may turn out to be successes, but right now it's regression. Judy exhibits Kaz-like qualities, so it is no surprise she brings out good old sidekick Allie, who so quickly abdicates her top dog leadership to a woman with philosophical and apparent paranoid higher purpose, such as being against the man this time as opposed to all men. Is Allie trusting her too quickly? Feels like it to me. Judy presents as more interested in her causes than taking top dog status for the sake of it, but she's taking it nonetheless. And you have a good point. Judy carries herself like a queen spy ballerina, roughing it with some lesser resourceful Smurf peasants until she gets assassinated by some other character from world she brought into the prison with her. She doesn't have time to look down her nose at other prisoners. She's only concerned with how she can enroll them in practicing her ideology. So, Allie has someone who is smart enough and fearless enough to take on exposing even higher up government corruption openly in her midst. Her favorite, rebel with a cause, who does all the thinking for her. Just when I saw Allie was starting to think for herself. Mm-hmm. Judy showed on the surface she respects rank when apologizing, but Allie lets her walk all over her compared to what any other top dog would do. Ali would rather keep the peace than be respected. That could work. She punished Lou for the chaos she stirred up. Is she top dog just because she shot that guy? Because she was a hero? It's unclear why she has a following, except that she's popular in a high school girl kind of a way, and a badass with values. But why is that enough? And why is no one trying to take her down? Where are all the gangs and cliques? That's what I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
So far, Judy embodies the energy of someone truly standing up to the government and not just a paranoid extremist. But we don't know any of that yet. Just that she's being framed for worse than she did to end up in prison in the first place. It was worth it to her to go to prison for what she believes in, but her purity of purpose is her weakness now, as she's not in a fair fight. Her seeming purity of purpose is a welcome foil to Ali's scattered leadership style, which seems to find its center at the corner of whoever is most dramatic street and anyone who inspires collective uprisings avenue.
I love that.
She may be a top dog with a visiting mentor, a top dog in label only now that was a quick reign, a top dog demoted in practice and soon in title, or some other variation thereof. Ali's top dog style is disjointed but curious because she will step into the role of fear-inducing tyrant, but she prefers a more jovial, harmonized atmosphere. Her gifts are more in togetherness and community, and of course, idolizing empowered women, identifying leaders. At first meet, Ali's friendliness disarms, and being flanked by Mr. Jackson or other connections gives her the clout and power she lacks in fear-mongering. However, she can use the officers as shiny accessories all the time, and her crew seems kind of flimsy and also like they're out of a school recess more than supporting a ruling top dog. Ultimately, this combination brings respect sometimes, but more so, leaves room for others to lead and disrespect her. She seems to prefer tyranny only for punishment and a last resort.
Well, tyranny is not such a great thing.
No, I agree. But what she's saying is, that's what I'm saying. I love her style of democracy and let's talk about it, and I'm not going to be violent unless it's absolutely necessary.
Because prison is bad enough without having to fear your top dog.
Absolutely, but knowing these women, they're not the kind of women who are just going to say, "Oh, this is so great. We can all be equal, and it can all be nice and fuzzy and warm." It
seems out of character.
Yeah.
I mean, where's Juicy Lucy's crew?
Actually, this brings me to my next point. Julie now has another comment to make, which I think she didn't even realize exposes another big problem for Ali.
Okay. It's a top dog's job to know what drugs / unsanctioned meds are or aren't needed, legal or otherwise, on their side of the bars, and to manage those issues however cleanly, corruptly, or lethally. Prisoners aren't trusting her to solve these things. They aren't coming to her for help with problem solving. But those who go to her are usually asking her to use her power for their solution. Consequences are already stacking up for this mismanagement because Reb is in the hospital. Lou's pride may prevent her from trusting or asking for help from Ali, but her punishment should have made her respect Ali's status more. I really agree.
So here's the problem that I think nobody pointed out this week. Zaina. She's the one with the phone. She's the one who brings in drugs. Right. She's the one who brings in drugs. She brought the testosterone anyway, and I'm sure that she brings other contraband in. She's the one who flexes her muscle in the crew head's meet. She's the one who calls Judy hot chocolate and tells her, "We'll take care of you," or "We'll look after you," or whatever it was. They are building Zaina more and more with every
you're
episode.
So right, and she's attractive too.
She's attractive. She's powerful. She has a mean streak in her.
But she also has a sense of humor.
Yes, but they're definitely building her up as, I think, somebody who's going to try to take over something, or is somebody who Ali, for some reason, Ali is not aware that she has a phone. She's not aware that she's bringing in drugs. She sees her. If I were Ali, I would be definitely spotting this woman as a possible troublemaker.
And a rival.
Yes, and I would be doing enough to make sure to keep her in her place, which Ali doesn't seem to do. It seems to me that there's a lot that goes on in the prison that Ali is not aware of. So,
well, maybe Ali figures that if it's running smoothly, she doesn't need to stir things up.
Well, guess what? If it's running smoothly, it's because people are managing to hide it well. It's not because it's running smoothly. So I think though Zaina is definitely being built up to being something, playing a much more important role.
Zaina.
Zaina, yes. Rachel says, I didn't quite get the whole, speaking of which, I didn't quite get the whole need to call the reporter from the call center. Judy may not have phone privileges, but Allie does, and even if she didn't want to use the payphone, she's the fucking top dog. She could use that cell phone whenever she wanted to. Right. So I thought this was maybe to show that either she doesn't know that Zaina has a phone, or that she doesn't feel that she can tell her she needs the phone. But Rachel actually points out another possible explanation. They just needed to show us a call could be made from the call center dialed directly out for something that will need to happen later. Also, that they're not listening on the calls, which is ridiculous.
They might be listening now.
It might be. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Please.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's akin to cameras being turned. And we have a thing from Denise later. Hold on.
They record their own phone, their private phone calls. So you know what.
And again, every time I call customer service, they tell me the call might be recorded. Anyway, so that's it. And speaking of the crew heads and Zaina and all that stuff, let's talk for a second about the hunger strike, because I found it to be a completely lackluster, lame, unworthy of Wentworth storyline. I mean, they built up to that story as something that's going to blow up the prison. I was expecting a riot, burning mattresses, something big. And no, we struck for, 35 minutes? Yeah, we're good now.
Well, they promised to fix the food.
Yes,
so.
That's what I mean. It's like nothing. Okay, so
that was easy.
I already said my thing. I think it was meant to deliver these 4 important points. Anne is terrible. Allie's Judy's a leader. Reb, again, another interception of the testosterone, just to show us how desperate Reb is to get testosterone. And of course that Allie yes. Well, no, Will in this case did the right. I mean, it wasn't his job. It wasn't his case. It was because Anne got because they managed to release it to the press, and Anne got told off from.
But Will said.
No, Will just said we'll wait it out. They'll be hungry eventually. Which to me was so much worse, because he's just look at this crap. Would you touch it?
Would you touch it? No.
But anyway, let's see what you thought. So let's start with Jane, who says, are you telling me the obsession with the terrible food for the first 2 episodes was resolved with a 30-minute hunger strike? That doesn't make sense to me at all. There was so much attention paid to it, and that is all you got? And now Lauren?
The food did truly look terrible. And yes, of course, it is linked to Anne's cutting costs to the prison. But the whole thing was built up to be some sort of big resistance fight. And was anyone else thinking it was very short and not at all like a proper hunger strike? It just sort of fizzled out, really, and not at all like a proper hunger strike. Oh, sorry. It just sort of fizzled out, really. Some comic relief and smiles saying, I wouldn't shit that. And in Boomer not being able to keep away from the food and spewing it all over the call center computer keyboard. Poor Boomer. So, was it a big storyline for the episode, or just another way to highlight that Anne's changes mean worse life for the women of Wentworth? Seems to be a point that Anne doesn't care at all about well-being or quality or life for any of the inmates. Yes. And I say that that's totally true. She's a beast. Yes. She's a beast, and it was a weak attempt of a hunger strike. And what did they miss? Breakfast?
Pretty much.
I think that's the only meal that they missed was breakfast.
Pretty much. Yes, and the next...
I often go without breakfast, and I don't call it a hunger strike.
I don't have blueberry muffins today. I'm going to go on a hunger strike.
To lunch.
We'll talk about Anne in a second, but let's just hear what David has to say before we do. I mean, I wish we didn't have to talk about Anne, because she kind of makes me nauseous.
Yes, but she's very, very important.
I know. So, David?
I don't feel starting the hunger strike came from a need to help the women.
He's talking about Judy.
But more out of a need to upset the status quo. I don't think she cared about the food supplier issue. She cared more for challenging authority and thought nothing of a few casualties along the way. Her intentions are honorable, but she is the kind of extreme, left-wing ideology that can sometimes be extremely dangerous. I wonder if that is what the intention of having her and Anne in the same season. Anne is extremely right-wing and Judy is extremely left-wing. Maybe this entire arc is a commentary on the benefits of centrist politics. David. Because the extremes of right and left can be equally as dangerous. I'm excited to see where this goes.
I don't think it's a
very
commentary on
intellectual,
centrist
thought.
politics. I think that it just makes for good drama when you have polar opposites, because it usually means there will be an explosion at some point.
Or two.
But when it comes to Judy doing it I think it was a combination. I think Judy's her default is, I see a wrong here, we need to right this, and we need to stand up to it.
And I think she's rebelling against her father's politics also.
Right. Yeah, maybe Anne knows her father. Interesting. Okay, time to talk about Anne. It's inevitable, we have to. So Anne pretty much gave us her professional motto this episode when she said, our sole responsibility is to keep them alive. I think that pretty much sums it up. There's a lot more to it, but in terms of how she treats the prisoners
and how she thinks about them,
how she thinks about her job and about the relationship, the power balance between them, she pretty much sees them as scum of the earth. They earned what they got. They don't have any rights or any justification to expect to be treated like humans. So basically, yeah, she just.
She heads an animal shelter but doesn't like animals.
I worry about comparing people to animals because I worry about what people might say. We're not talking about that. There's another comment here. No. Of course you are not.
Comparing her
I'm just
to
worried
an
about this extremely politically correct, sensitive world. We are not comparing anybody to animals. There's actually another comment here that I thought, oh my god, I'm going to have to put a trigger alert here. We did not mean to compare.
I'm not calling the prison animals. I'm making a comparison between someone who is responsible for people's lives but doesn't like them.
Right. So let's see what you've said, and I'm going to start with Karen, who said, as for Anne Reynolds, she and Judy Bryant obviously have history. I wonder if Judy and Rita will join forces and reveal just what Anne got up to in the UK. I'd love to see that. Well, they have history, and they're obviously tying Anne to Judy's story. And I'm wondering if Anne's story actually could be more than just the Figueroa, creepy, corrupt, greedy management. If there actually is much more to it, which it seems like they might be heading towards. But let's see what Ryan said.
Okay, Figueroa, in case you didn't watch Orange is the New Black, is their general manager.
Yeah.
Anne Reynolds, this is Ryan. Anne Reynolds is just an evil micromanager who reminds you of that boss you once had that is unbearably exhausting and toxic. Someone else said something like that.
Yeah, I think David said that.
It was David. It's obvious that she is trying to make life unbearable for Will. She describes her micromanaging as hands-on. No, Anne, you are just a difficult person with personal issues you need to resolve. Perhaps Reynolds is turning into a character that we can love to hate.
No.
I already do.
I hate to hate her.
I hate her. I have this in parentheses. I just hate her.
And I hate to hate her. She's the kind of character that, well, again, we might learn more about her in the future, but for now...
She just makes me anxious because, she has no soul. Reynolds has a particular hatred for Bryant, which is noteworthy in this... in the rage in Reynolds' eyes when she saw the article about the hunger strike while talking to the minister.
Well, that's also because
she got upbraided, she got...
Yeah.
In Anne's head... Oh, no. It's almost like Then we saw the death stare she gave Judy when Will announced the success of the hunger strike. It's almost like Anne built up this idea that she is at war with Judy in her head. Typical toxic behavior from a micromanager.
Maybe it's something from their history. Maybe she's there not by coincidence.
In Anne's head, perhaps Judy got in a few good jabs, yet Anne won round one. I'm hoping for a series of skirmishes between Judy and Anne. Next time, I hope Judy gets Anne and wins round two. And now I have a little observation here, which is that Anne is starting to remind me of Joan, but without the subtext.
And the bun.
And the bun, for sure.
Well, but you know what?
She's cheap.
But-
She's mean.
but
she doesn't give a crap of the women, and she's about the women, and she's proud of it.
I disagree because Joan actually took a lot of pride in her work, and she was very methodical. She was very organized. She felt that her job was important. She treated the women a certain way, but it wasn't out of greed. It wasn't out of corruption. It was out of a sense of trying to restore world order. You are here because you. Yes, it's a very OCD kind of a thing. You disrupted the order. We need to get you back in line. This is why you're here, because there are certain rules and laws in the world, and this is how it works, and I'm in charge. And I thought
And she really adheres to those rules and law.
Well, no, not now, but no, and not
or
then.
even then.
Yes, but there's a different playbook. She has in her mind, I think, because she again thought that she had she was a higher rank. She had a higher purpose. She was more.
Well, Anne certainly thinks she's a higher rank.
Anne just does whatever she wants to take care of Anne. I think Ferguson, at least in those first two seasons.
I know what you're saying. In the early seasons, yes, she did, take.
Yes, I think she cared. Yes, I think she cared a lot about what she did. She had a different idea about how it should be done, but I think Anne just cares about herself. Rachel says Anne could care less about running the prison. She has another agenda. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I'm sure we'll find out. If Anne was so concerned about the budget, why should she deny Reb his HRT? Will said they could recoup the cost of the meds from Reb's prison wages. I don't know if it's her ambition run amok, or if Anne is as fucked up as Joan ever was. We'll see.
There you go.
Yeah. And now, Lauren?
Lauren says, Anne is actually a nasty piece of work. We find out in this episode that she is willing to send a woman to jail for something she did not do, planting evidence on Judy's laptop.
Well, especially if it means she gets 25% more because she's an A-class offender.
Yep. Or basically colluding with the authorities to keep Judy behind bars. So obviously no real moral code there for Anne. We may find out that Anne has some kind of long history of suffering in some way from what Judy did in the UK.
Or her father, maybe.
If so, I may be a little more forgiving in my assessment of her. But for now, all we know is that Anne knows of Judy from the UK, and she's willing to fabricate evidence to see Judy suffer. Let's also remember that Anne blocked Mari Winter's transfer to a psych facility, all in the name of money. And I think is part of the unraveling of the prison that should lead to absolute chaos and a depressing state of affairs in Wentworth. Interesting that Anne reacts to negative press straight away by reinstating the old food. She definitely doesn't like bad press. Inmates may be able to manipulate her this way in the future. I wonder what role Vera's friendship will take once she sees how heavy-handed Anne is in the prison and how detrimental her changes are for the women. This is in direct conflict with how Vera would handle the women, and I totally agree with that.
I do want to mention one thing that Kathy said that I was actually going to say later when we talk about Vera, but I will squeeze it in here, which is I can't wait for Vera to get back to being governor and see what her friend has been doing. All of Anne's cost-saving schemes are going to come at a bigger price in the long run. People will get hurt or worse. Is it a power thing with her, or is she getting some sort of kickback with the money she saves, or is she just evil?
I think she gets more money for the better her job is, and she wants to keep the job. So I think whatever happened with her last job, it's important for her to make up for what might have happened in this job.
You know, we might be making a lot of this more than it really
right,
is.
She just might be a mean bitch.
She might just be a mean bitch, but if it is related to Judy comes from the UK, she has a politician as a father, and it seems was kicked out of the UK so maybe she was involved. I mean, she obviously knows her. Judy doesn't know Anne, but Anne knows Judy. And in fact, she even knows where she lives. They make a point of her saying, tell them what they want to know, and then you can go home to Hampshire. Why did she mention that? Why not? And then you can just go home to Hampshire. She kind of made a point of saying that. So I wonder what that is supposed to tell us. Robin says, I really don't think they're giving us enough of Anne's full character. Every time she comes into the picture, it's to rub salt in a wound. Even that is getting old already. There has to be more than this one side to her, so I hope it comes out soon. There's apparently some history with a child that Vera alluded to last episode. We can only hope that will peel back some layers. And Kathy says?
No, I don't have Kathy Avalor.
Oh, sorry. Not sorry. You have Denise.
I have Denise.
Yes.
Are all the prison GMs assholes and criminals themselves? It seems like it. Anne hasn't done anything illegal that we know of yet, but I have a feeling she will.
I'm sure she has.
I am growing to despise her more with every episode. Moi aussi, Denise. Although she does remind me of Erica a bit, the way she steps over anyone to make herself look good.
Erica was weak, though.
I don't think she has any remorse like Erica had, though. I hope Will doesn't allow this bitch to tear the women down more than they already are. Will needs to stand up to her, but we know this will take time if it happens at all. Now that Anne has made an enemy of Judy, I think this will be how Anne's past comes out. Judy will uncover the truth about Anne's child and what happened to it.
That could be interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how she will.
I hate her too, though, whatever happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now David.
Okay. David. Anne continues to get more intriguing by the week.
The anti-comment.
There is a lot more to her appointment at Wentworth than meets the eye. I agree with that. She definitely has links with the NSO. She either is already working with them or spying for them in hopes of a promotion. She's really infiltrating Wentworth more than any general manager ever has. Will even comments on this. There are no secrets that are safe when Anne is around. She knows everything.
Well, yes, she's bugging people.
Nothing goes under her radar, and she is ruthless. Yes, they should realize that. Hiccups. There is a reason she was brought over from the UK, and it's not because she stepped down. She's there to do a job, and I'm not quite sure we know exactly what that job is yet. But I'm gripped.
Well, again, I hope we're not making something out of it that it isn't, because she might just be one of those, which I would find to be so boring and a cliche.
No. I think there's more to her than meets the eye.
Kathy says that Anne is a real piece of work. Not sure how it is in Australia, but looks to me like what they did to Allie and Judy was illegal, bugging the cell of someone who is not even a suspect, and that guy continuing to talk to Judy after she said she wanted to wait for her lawyer. Definitely, except when you throw around terms like terrorism and national security, apparently you can do whatever you want. And yes, I do think it's illegal, but that doesn't stop them from doing it. But Rachel has an interesting theory. Here's my theory. The real enemy of the state, title of the episode, is Anne. She bugged Allie's cell. She planted the terrorist evidence on the laptop before she divulged the computer's whereabouts to the NSO. Mari has stated that she had evidence on more people. That evidence is now tangled up with Rita's case. While the AG might have been the highest-ranking official there was documented dirt on, he was not the only one. We have seen the twisted slime Channing was. I think we will eventually find out that Anne is covering for other corrupt officials, and she's more than happy to let Judy Bryant take the fall and keep her fellow officials safe.
Well, now, I agree with some of that, but here's what I'm confused about. Mm-hmm. I didn't think Anne was the one who had got access.
No, she's saying, she's positing that Anne was the one who planted the stuff on her computer.
See, I don't think so.
No, I think it's the NSO. I think she's possibly aware of it.
And the NSO were the ones who bugged it, and that's who got the information.
No, I think Judy says it's Anne.
Well,
or that Anne told them, alerted them to the fact that she and Allie are together, and so they should bug the cell.
They bugged the cell, and we're complicit with that. Yeah. But I don't think Anne was the one who went out and got the key and got the box and planted the evidence.
Or maybe she told somebody of her people, not necessarily the NSO, but
I think the NSO were responsible.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But this is another interesting theory.
Yes, it is an interesting theory that the NSO really thinks this is real.
Yeah, I don't think so. It didn't, from his face, it didn't seem like
good.
Yes, he is very good. And by the way, Ryan asks why, and on second viewing I noticed it. I didn't notice it the first time. It says on his badge when he shows her that his name is Tony Cockburn.
Cockburn, yeah.
So is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Because
usually it's
because Ryan said why is he introducing himself as Cockburn when it says Cockburn? So it was for a laugh because he's a cock. Okay, that's why, Ryan.
It's all yes, and it's also the way.
No.
Cockburn
yes, but the fact
generally pronounced Cockburn.
Right, but she tells him it says Cockburn, and so Ryan says, "Why did he say that his name is Cockburn when it's actually Cockburn?" So actually, that's how it's pronounced, and Judy's pointing out that it's Cockburn to make a point as a laugh that he's a cock. Okay.
Okay.
And now you've made me say that terrible word 3 times in a row.
I wonder if I can do it again.
Well, David also has an interesting theory.
He has a prediction. Those terrorist plans that Judy claims were planted on her computer. Yeah, I think she knows exactly what they are. And I think she's going to use her influence over the women to cause some major trouble for the officers and the prison board. Riot incoming.
So in other words, he's saying that they are her plans?
No more riots, David. That's what he's saying.
That they are her plans.
That's what he's saying.
I don't know. She seemed pretty genuine about being not only surprised but outraged. Usually, I mean that.
Yes, she said that they're. Anyway.
They were not hers. And I believe her because also she was so certain.
It's not her deal.
She kept saying, well, you can't find anything on there anyway.
Well, they can't find it anyway, is what she was
No, but even then, after he found it, he said, well, there's nothing on there anyway.
Right, that's right.
And she kept saying, I didn't get these things. I didn't hack. I just released.
And then I passed the right.
So when she was so cocky, and all of a sudden she wasn't cocky anymore. Again, that word. Because...
I knew you'd say it.
Because she realized that they really had something on her when she didn't think they had anything on her. So I don't think so. But either way, Robin says, it's looking as if Anne is trying to make the role of governor non-essential so she can get rid of Will and save that salary as well. She's a shark and he needs to man up. So it's time to talk about Will, and especially in relation to Anne. I don't know if she's just trying to get rid of him so that she could save cost.
No, I think she doesn't like him and she wants him out.
Because she knows he will stand in her way, and he does things by the book, and it's hard to get things by him.
He also has compassion.
Well, yes, but if she is more than just, if she's just greedy, then he stands in her way of getting everything she wants to do, like cut costs and all that stuff, and it's just a hassle. But if she actually has a more sinister purpose, then him doing everything by the book, like getting a warrant for Ruby's thing, then to her, it could be an obstacle in her way. So I think either way, she would love to get rid of him. And I think the reason that she wanted Vera so badly is because, unfortunately, not only is she her friend, as much as I love Vera, she's not very particularly well known for being this fierce, very strong person, and especially
look how the prisoners feel about her.
Right. Now we see it as a virtue because she's compassionate and loving, and because ultimately that could be a good way to govern if you do it right. But also think about it, Anne, I think, wasn't in touch with Vera all that time since they were at the academy together or whatever school it was. So Anne knows very tiny Vera. And we know what tiny Vera was like. She doesn't know the Vera that's gone through all this stuff and is now a lot more, even if you don't see it from her, she looks the same. She has this sweet demeanor. But she doesn't know how fierce Vera can actually be now. So maybe she underestimates her, and she thought, I'll bring her on and I can manipulate her. Yes, right. Exactly. She will be my puppet. I know who else thinks that you're the puppet. No, you're the puppet.
How do you pronounce the word C-O-C-K?
I'm not your puppet.
I'm just going to see if I can.
I'm so sorry.
Get you to sneak one more in.
I'm not that easy. You have to really be smarter about it. Please give me some credit.
I thought I'd catch you off guard.
So Will needs to stop letting Anne trample all over him. I don't know why he's such a complete, again, floor doormat again. And Lauren says,
Will may have held on to the governorship, but it appears he has no authority to make any kind of decisions. Anne just snaps her fingers and he seems to have to go along with it, whether he likes it or not. It would be interesting to know how much a general manager really can control and where a governor's decision-making capability should lie.
Yeah, I agree. I would be interested.
I'd like to know that line of demarcation.
Because certainly the first episode or two didn't show Will to be this, weak, willing to just let her do what she wanted person. I thought he would fight way more for Rib's hormone therapy.
Yes, me too.
And for the women.
But they had things to do going down the
again, you can't keep compromising characters just for the sake of a story.
Let me just tell you that.
Yes, we've said that a million times.
Soap operas, it really, really, really is evident.
We've said that a million times.
You cannot sacrifice character on the altar of story. Characters are the building blocks.
At least throughout the entire seasons 5 and 6. I think we kept saying that every single episode of Talking Teal. So in season 7, they came back stronger. They put emphasis on character. They brought new characters in that were very, strong. But again, they're kind of slipping a little bit. Diana says, I am now far more interested in Will. Watching his decisions being overturned by Anne definitely felt real. The CCTV cameras might be a fantasy, but this storyline rings completely true. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the CCTV cameras, Denise had an interesting a bit of information to give us this time.
Very good research. Mm-hmm. By the way, Denise says, I read a little piece about the props for Wentworth. All the locks are prison issues and have to be returned when the show ends. And those cameras we keep bitching about are as well. The housings are all real. I did a little digging, and those cameras are used in prisons, but mostly outside.
And I just want to say, mostly outside, when you see them at the end of a tower, they can't reach them with a broom. I can see that, but not when you can reach them with a broom or cover them with a blanket. Go ahead.
They are heavy duty and can stand more punishment. Also, they are cheaper than digital cameras. Here we go again. The ones in Wentworth are analog cameras, which are cheaper for prisons to use. So while it's annoying that those cameras can move, I guess there is some reality to them. I was just saying, I think that you're right, and it's very good of you. But I say they should have learned their damn lesson by now and invested in a good system of cameras.
Exactly. Once the camera manipulation was used for the 15th time to cut an inmate's tongue or rape somebody or
start a riot or whatever. Just come on.
I think at that point you say, okay, where can we cut the budget so that we can have some better cameras? I do want to say one thing about Will before we move on to Vera, which is a comment from Rachel, and I believe it does apply to Will. I don't think it applies to Jake in this case. It does apply to Will and a bunch of other people, but here it is. I've seen lots of comments about how disrespectful the writers have been about Reb. People are offended that the staff refers to Reb as her. These lines of dialogue are intentional. People are ignorant about pronouns. The writers are showing you that even the good guys, like Will, don't have the first clue about the battle Reb is fighting. That's pretty true to life in my experience. Mm-hmm. When I saw Will use the she and her pronouns with Anne, I thought that is very realistic. He wasn't doing it to Reb's face. He was just having a conversation with somebody else and not thinking about it and just slipping into what would be the...
And not only that, Anne would probably set something off in Anne. Maybe. Those pronouns.
I can see how certain people that would... I don't agree with that about Jake, but what I do want to say is I didn't realize so many people thought that it was disrespectful because to me it was very obvious that the writers are trying to show how hard it is to get people to change their minds, change the way they think, even people who mean well. Mm-hmm. And as the perfect proof to that, I can tell you that about 50% of the time I have to change your pronouns in your emails. Everything you hear here referred to Reb as he, him, and his, and he. 50% of that I had to change. And sometimes in the same sentence you will say he and then her.
It's very hard.
It's confusing.
Very difficult. It's very confusing. I've had friends who have changed their names, and it takes me 10 years to get over it. You know?
So it's not
let
out
alone
of
their sexual their sex, their gender
identity.
Yes.
It's not out of mean intention when it comes. This is why it's important to think about intention. If you hear a bigoted, homophobic, transphobic asshole say it, then the intention matters.
What it is.
But when you hear somebody who is from the LGBT community or who is supportive of the LGBT community, who's trying to get Reb as HRT, if he slips and does the wrong pronoun, it's meant to show you this is the world. This is how people, it's hard for people to...
It takes a while.
Yeah.
Even if the whole world is in accord, it still is a matter of retraining your brain-eye coordinate, your brain-tongue coordination.
Absolutely. So we barely had any Vera this episode. What we did have was very sweet, but I agree it was very, very small. And let's see.
But Vera has had a lot in the last couple.
I agree.
Of shows.
I can't complain because really she was very front and center, so I can't complain.
Front
I just
burner,
say,
as we say,
the
soap industry.
Lauren says,
Love Vera in this role in the call center. Once again, she shows her care for the women in her encouragement of Boomer on the phone. Can anyone else see a massive issue with prisoners working in a call center?
Yeah, especially if they're not being listened to and recorded.
The women say they are being watched, but quite frankly, supervision seemed pretty patchy. For Allie to be able to make a call like that straight after Judy asked her just shows the monitoring of this call center is as dodgy as the Wentworth cameras. I'm sorry, but it just seems to be a really dangerous thing for the women to be allowed to do, although more scope for intrigue in future episodes.
Yes, and I would be interested, not that they're ever going to show us because it's a very minor thing, but I would be interested if they vetted them and only allowed certain women who maybe were
trustworthy.
Yeah.
Trustworthy.
Yeah, exactly. Even though I don't know how a top dog would be trustworthy, even though I know it's Allie and they love her,
Yes,
but
and
you
they
know
know that she's trustworthy.
Yeah, but she's not. I mean, she is as far as we're concerned. She made the call for the right reasons,
Yeah.
but not as far as they're concerned.
Right,
She made a
right,
call
right,
that she
right.
wasn't supposed to make. David says,
A lovely, albeit very short, scene with Boomer this week that just cemented how much I love their bond. Is this Vera and
Yes.
Boomer? Mm-hmm. Boomer helping deliver Grace has really endeared Vera to Boomer, and their relationship is one I watch with joy.
Yes.
Vera was made for this more hands-on role with the women. She really has found her stride in Wentworth, and I'm looking forward to this new role as industries manager, strengthening her bond with the women. She is their top dog on the opposite side of the bars.
Absolutely. And Ryan has another interesting piece of information from trivia from Prisoner. Interestingly, Vera Bennett was a mean, cruel, back-chatting character. When she
Backstabbing, I would bet.
He said back-chatting.
Oh, okay. So, talking behind people's backs. Sorry.
When she left Wentworth to work at Barnhurst, the prisoners all had a party. The officers also had a goodbye party for her, yet she didn't turn up.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how they completely
That's
changed
very
characters. Yeah.
interesting.
Now, we have to talk about Smiles because this is, it's painful.
Stop calling her. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Well, go ahead. Read Rachel.
Rachel says, can we talk about Smiles for a minute? I guess I should have just said Linda Miles, since she doesn't smile at all anymore or make us smile.
Yeah.
She's still getting the best one-liners, but they seem to have lost their luster, and so has Miles. The siege seems to have made her a ticking time bomb. Every time she's on screen, I just keep waiting for her to explode. My bet is we will see that explosion before the end of the season. And I said that, she must, I agree with this. Maybe she's suffering from really some severe PTSD
Yes.
that needs to be examined, because she is like a different person. She is really, she was kind of tough, but you could buy her off. Maybe nobody has any money
She was
to
never
spend.
really tough. She
But-
was always kind of sarcastic.
Yeah.
And she was, you
But
know what she
she's-
was?
but she's-
She was kind of bored with her job. She was kind of like, I can't
Yeah,
be
no.
bothered. Make it worth my time by giving me some
Well, she's
money.
not
and
bored
I'll do it."
anymore. She just wants to be tough and mean, and
Well,
she hates the prisoners.
Not only that, it's one thing if you're doing that to the prisoners, if you're talking like that to the prisoners to make sure that they know their place. But there's a moment there when Will comes to Allie to tell her the results of the hunger strike, and Allie says, Linda Miles says, I hope he kicks her ass. Why? Why would she want that? She just said to Allie, I wouldn't even shit this stuff.
Yes.
So I wouldn't even shit this shit. So she knows. Why would she want them to suffer? I mean, again, I repeat, it's only one woman who caused the siege, and the rest of them were just as powerless.
They were all there together.
Some of them were shot to death. So it just doesn't jive very well.
I think she's having a mental thing.
Well, then I think we have to see
About
something about this,
definitely, because it's a change that happens then for no reason.
Yes, and to lose a favorite character who for years now we've been cheering on and asking
For more. Okay, well, they're giving her more, but they're not giving us more of the Linda Miles we love.
Or of the new Linda Miles, but with the backstory,
Right.
with the challenges, with seeing how the psychology, what's going on in her. I want to see that.
And Jackie Brennan is a really good actress, so she really
She's such
sells
a good actress.
this. She really sells this.
You know what? This is how you know that Jackie is such a good actress, because for years now she's had basically up to 10 lines an episode sometimes. If that many. Last year they finally gave her more to do.
Yeah.
But she managed to become one of our favorite characters with just those few lines an episode.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just so good, and she's so wasted. Kathy says, through all the years, many of us have wanted more Miles. This would be a great time to fill us in on what's going on with her these days. Even though Miles was always on the take in some way, she never has had such disdain for the prisoners. Is she just angry and disgruntled? Or does she just not give a shit anymore? Maybe it goes even deeper than that, and some things actually going on with her. We have a lot of questions. We need some answers.
Yes.
And I think Miles deserves it, and we deserve it. All right.
And you deserve it.
Yes. Well, I meant.
Yeah, I know.
Let's talk about Boomer and the family, or what's left, the leftovers, we'll call them. Julie says, at WentworthCon, both Tammy and Celia mentioned on the Q&A stage that Katrina was missing them a lot after she became so close with them on set over all the previous seasons. They said it was a big adjustment for her. I can't help but see that loss for Boomer as well. Their in-prison family is so broken and fragmented that it is weakened, and her heart feels somewhat absent. Boomer is the heart of the prison, and Liz was the one who cared for it best. So without that relationship and what Booms is going through now, maybe that's why it all feels so fragmented. And where are the after effects of the swirl, which I don't know what that means, and loss of Liz? B got a whole wall of roses. Right, so what she
I'm
means
sure
is
this is a typo.
We're not seeing any kind of memorial or any kind of hints of, Liz's absence or anything like that around the prison. It is interesting that they didn't do any kind of a little
because she
shrine
was so
to Liz.
beloved.
But Julie also goes on to say that Booms is an orphan left with fellow unsupervised kids. She's got an emptiness and depression about her, but she's not found a new bestie or mom yet. I fear we may lose her.
Oh, no.
On the other hand, David says...
Always on the other hand. Boomer's back. A great episode for our beloved Boomer. The light was back on and she is starting to come alive again.
Isn't it funny how people can see completely different...
It is. I love it.
Ends of, yeah.
A great move by the writers allowing Boomer to continue Liz's legacy as pair worker.
Yes.
That's true. H1 is also starting to feel more like family again. Judy's induction was a great way of establishing the new dynamic. It was nice to see Boomer laughing again. She was a much more lighthearted and fun character this week.
I don't know if it's starting to feel more like a family again because it's really only Allie, Boomer, and Ruby. That's pretty much it. And
yeah, that's another thing when we were talking about how Allie needed to know everything going on in the prison. She doesn't have enough eyes and ears. Her crew is so small. We need to see how she exerts her top dogship by sending out these different crews to be in charge of certain things.
I agree.
How she delegates, because otherwise
she seems weak.
Yeah, she seems weak because she has nobody much to back her up.
I agree. Lauren says, I love that Boomer is the peer worker now. How interesting. And she really has come full circle. It is a lovely nod to the relationship she had with Liz that she has stepped into this role, welcoming new inmates into prison. And also Rachel says, it's good to see Boomer as a peer worker. I think it's a good fit with her character evolution. She's a different kind of peer worker, one that works as an enforcer on the side. But she doesn't actually do much of that anymore. In fact, last time she was the one being beaten and she had to go to somebody else to fix things for her. So I think Boomer is softened. She's kind of a marshmallow these days. And Lily says, I thought that this is interesting. I did not think about it at all. I thought that Boomer's trip to the hospital for her food poisoning would be the pretext for her encounter or a member of the staff with the freak. And no, we will see if something happens when Reb is in hospital. Interesting. Yeah, so more on Reb in a second, but in the meantime, really, the family is so shrunken now, and I think one of the problems with the family is that, yes, Allie we care about, although it's a problematic character in terms of how the writers treat her. Boomer we absolutely love, but the third wheel is Ruby, who, as always,
leaves us a little
cold. However, she may have reached some of you this episode. It seems like some of you are softening a little bit up with this, her dad and the cancer story, and, it helps to see a character cry. And I think Roddy did a great job. She's a very, very fine actress.
Very good actress.
So she did a really good job with the material that they gave her this week. Let's start with Ryan.
Ryan says that seeing Ruby cry was so heartbreaking. Ruby has grown up in the time she's been in prison. I have a feeling she has grieved the loss of her Einstein smarts from the car accident, and while she is talented at boxing, she's restricted because of her brain aneurysm. Ruby's starting to grow up
basketball, so.
and realize what her sister has done for her. She is taking ownership, which means there is potential for character development. However, the sad news about her father will also be terrible. I wonder if Morelli and Jones will be after Ruby to punish Rita.
So the fact that you end with that question leads to my point, which is you say character evolution. The thing about Ruby is she is there to serve Rita's story. And the whole story with her dad is really just to get to Rita, because now they have to tell her that he has cancer, and now that he knows that she wasn't this bad bikie who did, now they'll need to get her. So somehow this will either mean Rita will be in danger or Ruby will be in danger. And Ruby says, and I quote, "She would die to keep me safe," which I found a little foreshadowing, possibly.
Oh, so, I hope not.
Well, whether or not she dies, she would die to keep herself safe. So I think, again, the whole part of the problem with Ruby as a character is that she was never fully developed because she was always there to serve
She was an
Rita's
appendage.
story. Yes. She never had enough of her own personality, and what she did have was kind of meh. So, I think this story is also, it's all about bringing Rita back into the picture.
Lauren says, Ruby is getting a fair amount of airtime. Of course, it was interesting to suddenly see her father visiting. Respect for admitting that Rita always covered for Ruby and took the blame. This, though, is an old kind of storyline. Now that the daughter is not contactable, the dying father wants to make amends. It is horrible Ruby's father is dying of cancer. Normally I would feel much empathy for her, but I don't. Her character has not been one I feel I have been able really to connect with. So even when she's told horrible news, I'm not really interested. I suppose she forms part of the family in Wentworth that we're missing. Now, Boomer, Allie, and Ruby.
Yeah, but she's not really part of the family because we don't care about her enough for her to be part of the family. Robin says, Ruby will be looking for Rita to tell her about their father. It's the excuse she needs to drag her down and for the two of them to get into trouble together and end up back in Wentworth. She still feels like a side dish, not invested in her yet, still. Yep.
And Jane, the usual boring. Who cares your father has cancer? Why are you around? Please get parole at your earliest convenience. However, if Mari retracts her story and that expedites parole, I'm on board. Otherwise, maybe get caught in some crossfire. The Judy Bryant crosses. Oh, so let me just get this straight. Yeah. You don't like Ruby.
I don't think she likes Ruby that much. Rachel says, I was happy to see Ruby fess up to her dad about Rita always cleaning up her messes. I wonder if Ruby tells Rita their dad is dying and that Rita blows her cover trying to get to see him before he passes. What I don't understand, I don't think she's in touch with her. I don't think anybody can be in touch with her. So it will be interesting to see how they get in touch with her just to tell her about her dad, because he's supposed to be in protective custody. Go ahead. David?
David says, well, I actually enjoyed Ruby this week. Finally, she's been given a storyline outside this Danny Winter crap. Rowie showed how capable she is at the emotional stuff in this episode. And that's true.
Definitely true. So a couple of you have started to warm up to her. You feel a little sorry for her, but really mostly you couldn't care less. And another character that you couldn't care less about.
I think that's what some of the problems are right now.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. Mari. So let's talk about Mari. And let's start with Karen, who says, I'm not too sure what game Mari is playing. She's very cunning and a survivor. Susie Porter is one of my all-time favorite actors. Have you seen The Monkey's Mask? So I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind people, or let them know if they didn't know, that Susie actually played a lesbian in a movie called The Monkey's Mask. So go look at it.
Kelly McGillis, too.
Yes, Kelly McGillis, who also turned out to be a lesbian in real life. Always love it when that happens.
That won't be the last time that happens.
No. Lauren says,
oh man, I just do not give a fig about Marie. Mari. Sorry.
Maybe forgot what you was watching.
I forgot what I was watching. I do not believe this depression at all. So now what? She has some epiphany and then will push to be put back in general? Are we going to truly see that Mari has moved on from trying to get vengeance for Danny? Where does that even leave her storyline? I just don't understand why Wentworth is giving her such airtime. Can we have more of Rita or others? I am hoping Mari does not have some huge arc this season. Spending a lot of time on her for the past 2 episodes does not bode well in this regard, though.
I don't know why the Wentworth people would assume that we loved Mari.
But we did like her in the beginning. We were very excited about her.
We liked her in the beginning, but once we realized that she was not, we liked her in the beginning, because we thought she would be an interesting addition to Allie's life, and then she became obviously an antagonist and somebody who could not be trusted and somebody who would hurt the people we love, and so she immediately, became somebody that we didn't like. And yes, there are characters you enjoy hating, but her story now is boring
and repetitious
and confusing also, because at this time I don't care to exert my energy on trying to figure out if she's for real or not. I'm just waiting to move on to the next person.
Well, they showed us from her point of view what she saw.
Yes.
So that is, if this is something that she's feigning, that she's making up, then
no. We saw what she saw, but we still don't know if we can trust how she interpreted it. She says she saw Danny, and now she knows what to do.
Exactly.
And cut to, I'm dropping the charges against Ruby, but is it, I know now what to do, I've had an epiphany, I'm a changed person, I want to go back to...
Or is it, I know what to do now, and let's not bother with this thing with Ruby right now.
Or if I do that, maybe that would lead to where I want to be in a bit, The thing is, I don't care.
No.
I just wait for those scenes to be over. And she's wonderful. Susie Porter is wonderful. But I just couldn't care about Mari.
I have only one thing to say. Hurry up, Sheila.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if they do intend to do it, and we'll get to David.
Mm-hmm.
Again, his theory about, or rumors that he's heard about Sheila and Mari having a storyline together. Then hurry up and bring Sheila. Diana says, I continue to be mesmerized by Susie Porter's acting. The terror she showed, and absolutely fantastic acting.
Fantastic.
The terror she showed when Mari is gripped by the nightmare, and then her facial expressions as she explains to Dr. Miller that her near-death image was of complete darkness. That sent shivers down my spine. I can't fathom what her revelation was when she saw Danny and he appeared smiling and happy, but I'm looking forward to finding out. I don't look forward to finding out, but I will say that Susie is doing
wonderful.
Amazing. Yeah.
I have a little interest in finding out.
Again, I just don't. Whatever she does, I won't believe it until the ramifications happen later. So
that's why I said I have an interest in seeing what's going to happen.
Rachel
says, I believe Mari has actually hit rock bottom. I don't believe any of her depression is an act. She retracted her statement against Ruby. I think she's going to find a way to sacrifice herself before it's all said and done. She's worried about the hereafter, not the here and now. She's going to want to find a way to atone for her wrongs. I still believe she'll be dead before the end of the season.
Well, the only way that I could see that happening is if seeing Danny made her realize she wants to be dead more than alive so she could be with him. Especially if she says he seems happy and everything. If she just thinks, this life has been shit. I failed at everything, like she said. And if she decides to just go out in a blaze of glory, doing something meaningful rather than just killing herself for the sake of suicide and just going out like that. Maybe she's thinking, okay, I still want to die, but maybe I should do it in a bigger way or some way that will do something. I don't know. The thing is, when you say atone for her sins and all that, I don't know if in somebody like that, in their twisted mind, if, certain actions that they perceive to be good or have good intentions or be rightful or justified, if that would be, the same way that we would see it. So, but, we'll see. Robin says, just wondering where they plan to go with her, because right now her story is like beating a dead horse. I'm over even looking at her on my screen. I know. Jane?
Jane is speaking directly to Mari.
Oh, okay. Mari, I hope you're listening.
I'm not sure that anything you do is ever sincere. Is playing crazy your new thing? Have you really hit rock bottom? Is it medication? I don't care. Please go away to the locked psych facility at your earliest convenience. You have now entered Ruby territory for me. Do not care. Goodbye.
So
Harsh, Jane.
I think that in 2022, when we don't have Talking Teal going on anymore because we don't have Wentworth, Jane, I'm still going to need you to send me emails commenting on various things because I just enjoy it too much. Comment on whatever. I just want to hear it. Okay, and finally, David will be the last, but Julie says Mari is about to do something atrocious because self-pity that big justifies the world's worst evils, and she's saying what needs to be said to blind the dumb shrinkadink and leave the protection unit. I don't know what her end goal is, but this is exactly what I was talking about when I said I don't know, in her mind, what she thinks would be justified to do in a situation like that. So that would be, yeah. David.
And then there's David.
And then there's David.
What a fascinating character. Her conversations with Dr. Miller about death and what comes after were profound and really hit hard for me. She is terrified that everything she's done wrong in her life will lead to darkness and hell. She has given up on revenge and now only wishes to be with Danny. I think she's going to spend her final few episodes striving for redemption.
It is what the season is called.
I think she will be easily manipulated under Sheila Bausch when she arrives, whenever that is.
I mean, murder.
Her near-death experience is going to be the catalyst to her falling under Sheila's religious influence. I'm thinking that rumor about Mari self-immolating might hold some truth.
Well, if that happens, that'll be like
dear.
The worst.
Oh, no.
I think up until now, the worst thing I've seen on Wentworth was Joan cutting... What?
Yeah, and also the eye and
Jody Spiteri. Oh my God, it's been so long since we said that.
I'll never
Jody
Spiteri.
Oh, I think I just did Spiteri.
Well, it sort of lends itself to that. It's kind of onomatopoeia, right? Spiteri.
Okay, enough about Mari. Shall we talk about something more fun like Lou and Reb?
Yes.
Although they didn't have much fun this episode either.
No, they haven't been having much fun at all.
I know, but I enjoy watching them as a couple. I know that one of the comments said that they didn't buy... Actually, two people said they didn't buy them as a couple. But I really enjoy them. I enjoy seeing how gentle Lou is with Reb.
Yes,
it just is so sweet.
Yes.
And Zoe, and both of them are such wonderful actresses. Both of them are such wonderful actors. See? Okay, so let's start with Lily.
Lily says, the only thing that saved this episode for me were the scenes with Reb and Lou. I really like the storyline of Reb and his struggle to get his testosterone. I hope we will see more about this topic and that it was not just the pretext for his anaphylactic shock, his hospitalization, and an encounter with the freak. And I love how Lou loves Reb. She will definitely do anything for him, even, or better, if it means getting into trouble.
I don't know if it's a pretext. I mean, I don't think that they need a pretext because they're, again, a homeless person gets to hospital with no ID or whatever. But anyway, all the authorities are on alert that she is an escaped prisoner. So I don't think they need any kind of pretext because they will identify her and they'll call Wentworth. However, I do think that this storyline was, first of all, important, as far as I'm concerned, to show the struggles of trans people, especially when it comes to institutions where they have to, convince people that they deserve to be treated the way they need to be treated. Exactly. But I think that also it's important because I think that in the dynamic between Lou and Reb, this was an important episode, both because, and there are some comments here that will also repeat this, but I'll just quickly say, I think Lou felt that she very much let Reb down in this episode, starting with not being able to get him what he needed, and ending with getting him what ended up getting him in the hospital. So I think that it's an interesting arc that they're going through right now. I think Lou is feeling more powerless than ever. Lauren has a very interesting thing to say. Yes, but before Lauren, but first of all, Jane. Long time before me. They continue to be a really lovely little couple. They make me smile when they're together. The writing for these two characters is really great in my mind, and the trans struggles are so well done. Perhaps he will get proper testosterone when in the hospital. We can only hope, and maybe that will then force Anne to continue the treatment. And then Lauren says.
I wasn't surprised that basically.
Oh, sorry. I actually have David first.
I saw it.
Maxine was a great character, but I think this is such a more interesting and realistic portrayal of a trans character's plight.
Okay.
Now,
Lauren says, I wasn't surprised that basically we saw multiple efforts to get the right drugs for Reb fail. Anyone can see that this problem is going to become the reason for Reb and Lou both to get sucked into some scheme or other to fund the HRT. It also shows possibly, and I agree with you, some cracks forming in their relationship. Lou clearly realized that what she had given Reb had caused the reaction. She would never want to hurt Reb, but in her haste to help him, she has harmed him. Lou and Reb are being slowly backed into a corner, and let's remember, wounded animals attack.
this is when I was going to say we're not comparing people to animals, we're just saying metaphorically.
Please.
I
don't even
have
say that. This is
enough shit from people on social media to know that sometimes you have to put these
This is
statements.
not your problem. This is their problem.
So Rachel says, the search for a constant HRT supply makes Lou and Reb ripe for manipulation by someone. I'm betting on Anne. Interesting.
Yes,
I'm betting on somebody from the prison, but Anne would be an interesting twist. Denise?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. We were saying something?
I probably was. But I'm
Who
sure it
knows?
wasn't important. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. I remember.
I thought this was very interesting. I'm thinking that Lou Kelly was feeling like Reb didn't need her, and that is making her feel insecure. At least that's the impression I got.
I completely agree.
Me too. When she brought the testosterone to Reb,
That was actually steroids.
that she got inside the prison. When Reb told her he would wait for Will to come through for him, Lou looked a little surprised and maybe a little annoyed. It's evident that Lou loves Reb. But I think this relationship will become very volatile soon. Of course, I think right now Lou will be on the warpath because those very drugs were the ones that have now landed Reb in the hospital. Someone is going to get the living daylights beat out of them, and then Allie will have to have another altercation with Kelly because, like Kaz, Allie has a no-violence policy.
I agree, and furthermore, I'm going back to something I said in an earlier talking, Teal, which is I think that the relationship between Lou and Reb was very isolated up until now. I think they were very insulated, just the two of them, and now that they're in the prison, they're constantly surrounded by other people, and I think Lou will feel at some point that she's kind of losing hold over Reb, and he's becoming a little more
independent already. You can see that.
Yes, and so I think that would be another blow to their power dynamics. Sam says, why doesn't Lou Kelly ask Allie for the HRT? I feel that could be what drives her to bid for a top dog. Either way, I don't think Allie will get a happy ending. I think that she doesn't ask Allie for the HRT because she cut off her finger and she's not her friend. And I think that for Lou to cede power to somebody else and say, you're bigger than I am, you do this for me. I don't see Lou, that's not part of her character. I think she wants to be the hero for Reb, not ask for somebody else to be the hero. But it's an interesting observation that not being able, again, feeling more and more powerless or less and less powerful would maybe drive her to get a position that she already has held before and knows how to do. So, yeah. David?
I was just thinking more and more powerless is a different thing from less and less powerful.
I agree. Yeah, that's why I said it. Even though in my head is like more and more powerless.
Anyway, they're two different things. I agree. It sounds like they're the same thing, but they're really not when you think about it.
Well, she's both actually. She's less and less powerful, and she's more and more powerless in her condition right now.
David says Lou doesn't care who she puts in danger or how many laws she breaks to get Reb what he needs. I hear she may even compromise the respect she has amongst the women by playing spy for Anne Reynolds in exchange for Reb's treatment.
Where do you hear these spoilers? Things, David? Self-immolation, spying.
I think Lou is going to get very hurt when Reb eventually sees what Lou is capable of, even if her intent was to help Reb. And Lou, without Reb's love, could prove to be extremely, extremely dangerous. There was an interesting beat for Lou's character this week. Reb was misgendered by the officers twice in front of Lou, and she masterfully hid her anger.
Excellent observation.
Which shows she isn't a slave to her short temper. Attacking Boomer in episode 1 was therefore a demonstration of strength and power, and not about snapping and losing her temper. She is very capable of biding her time and striking when the opportunity arises. I think this misgendering of Reb might bode ill for Jake somewhere down the line.
And actually, our next discussion is about Reb, Jake. But I do want to say that it seems to me now, in hindsight, that maybe now that we see that she can control it when it comes to Reb's misgendering and stuff, that maybe her attack on Boomer was settling an older, maybe saying, you just stay in your place, and even though you're, the sidekick of the top dog, I'm just as powerful as you remember me. So don't think you can,
And she obviously had affection for Liz, so maybe she didn't think it was such a good thing she did for her, even though she's.
No, she said it was a beautiful thing, and actually,
she did. But
the kind of person
maybe
that
she was putting her off. Maybe she was.
I don't think so, because I think the kind of person she is, she would be the kind of person who would agree with euthanasia. But I just want to say also about Allie before we finish off. She does say when they switched the food supplier as a response to the hunger strike, Novak has fucked us again because she was supposed to bring the testosterone through the food delivery.
Right. But she didn't do it. She had no idea.
Of course. But to her, this is just more and more stuff adding on to why she has reason to not like at best and hate, Allie and want to not have anything to do with her or maybe possibly take her out.
Where did she get the testosterone?
The steroids from Zaina.
No. Then she got actual...
Oh, from her brother.
Oh, her brother.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Jake. Julie says...
Since when is Jake a goody-goody about drugs that are illegal, let alone medically necessary? He caved on punishment for Reb's proclamation of Lou's love for him, but doesn't have much weight yet, even... Wait.
But doesn't have much weight yet, even though it seems connected to his heartache over his separation.
Oh, that's why.
So the thing is that...
We need some punctuation.
And that's more than anything what we were meant to hear when Reb says, wouldn't you do anything for the person you love, for the people you love? And of course, immediately we're supposed to think Vera Grace.
And so that's why he didn't hurt...
That's why the whole scene took place, so that we would again have affirmation that Jake will do anything for Vera.
Yeah.
No, not that he really loves them, that he will do anything for them, which I think...
Well, I think he loves Grace.
Yes, but I think that we were meant to hear he will do anything. At some point, he will have to do something.
Yes.
That he will justify that
way.
He
didn't put Lou in the slot. Anyway, Allie has a bond with Jake over Ferguson's escape and assumed death. She could have Reb's meds to her in no time, but she is unfocused.
Well, and nobody's
asked her. Exactly. I hope she empowers herself to advocate for Reb. Maxine trailblazed this already. It's important to have representation for how much resistance transgender folks face in prison, but I hope the hospitalization knocks some practical application of past lessons learned with Maxine into the heads of those in authority over Reb.
So I think it was Julie who at some point in her email mentioned this, but maybe it was somebody else, about the fact that that she's disappointed that Allie didn't take Reb under her wing to help with the transition and protect him and all that stuff. And all I have to say is Reb is under Lou's, and after everything with the finger and stuff, I don't think Allie has any reason to think that she should. Actually, if Allie was a good top dog and a smart top dog, she would appeal to Reb and try to take Reb away from Lou.
Yeah, but I think that would cause a lot of problems that she doesn't really need to deal with.
No. But I think that she would be smart to make Reb like her. Yes. She would be smart to appeal to him, even if not in a way of trying to come between them, but just to kind of make goody-goody with him. I think that if she was smart, then I agree with Julie's observation about that she's not focused. It doesn't seem like Allie takes her job as a job. It seems to me that she thinks of it as, when shit comes up, I deal with it. But I don't do it as a day job otherwise. I don't actually take scope, make sure everything's okay, make sure I deal with things before they arise, or make people know how things have to run.
She's almost more of an enforcer. She's almost more of keeping things.
She's kind of like, if I have to, I'll deal with it. If not, leave me alone, would you?
Another thing about Jake is, so he relented on not slotting Lou, but I found. Now I know why it had to happen, of course, but I was very upset with the fact that he shot the testosterone down the sink.
Yeah.
He should have just gone all the way and let him have his damn testosterone. But then he wouldn't have taken
You wouldn't have the info like
the steroids, and they
Yeah.
wouldn't have found Joan. So
No, I still don't think that's why it is
Really?
meant to. No, because again, the cops will be called on an unidentified homeless person anyway. They will immediately do facial recognition, whatever, find that she's an escaped prisoner, notify
Well,
Wentworth.
then he should have let Red have his.
That might not be the way that they're going with it. Maybe it will be Reb in the hospital and all that stuff, the way that they find Joan. But in that case, it's ridiculous because her posters and her, wanted was all over the place just 3 months. Oh no, not 3 months ago, but just a few, whatever.
Well, we know
long-
things in Wentworth's Australia don't always run.
Yes. Well, but it's not Wentworth even. It's the cops. It's the police. It's the
Right.
Anyway. Jane says, I was so disappointed that Jake dumped his testosterone. What happened to caring Jake? Now he plays by the book? And refusing to say the correct pronoun for Reb was also shitty. Curious why Lou didn't correct him. Again, I think Lou is just, she's making note of everything.
Taking names and
Exactly.
making plans, yeah.
And we'll see what happens. I think she knows right now, she knew at the moment, she was trying, and that actually shows that she's a very smart and capable person. She knew in the moment that she was better off trying to convince Jake to let her see Reb in the hospital or somehow whatever. It wouldn't help her being mean to him.
The other thing is, Jake could be transphobia, even if he is transphobic.
In fact, quite a few people in the
even if he is
community are transphobic.
Yeah,
which is a shame, and it hurts my soul.
He may not put 2 and 2 together and come out with 4.
Was that all you trying to calculate how much 2 and 2
No, I know how much 2 and 2. I'm numerically dyslexic, but I can add, especially as long as it doesn't go past my fingers and toes.
However, some of you had a different perspective on this. Diana says the character does appear to be kinder in this series, but just doesn't get what being transgender means, hence refers to Reb as she. And Lauren says...
Lauren, darling. There you go. She was on an odd page, and I always think we're finished on the even page.
I see. That's part of your...
Lauren.
Yeah.
Jake continued to be a good guy this episode, not dragging Lou off to solitary, but picking up on the drugs and making sure they were flushed. So, do the right thing on his job, but also having some compassion for the women.
So, Lauren is thinking of it as if he's trying to balance it out.
Well, he should have let Reb have his drugs.
David says, another step up the ladder of redemption for Jake. He's like Will in so much he makes concessions for the women's actions if he feels they're justified. I'm liking him more and more. So,
well, I am too, but I do resent him flushing the drugs down. But I'm sure that was in order to get Reb
to the hospital.
To the hospital.
I did like his line about I don't care if it's unicorn G's, it's still contraband. I did like that one. But yeah. Obviously, again, going back to episode 2 and the title, all means to an end. And to me, the means to an end is more about the writers than about the characters. They're all using a lot of these things as means to an end.
The characters are simply puppets.
Not simply. They're not that bad. They used to be bad. They used to be bad in seasons 5 and 6.
The characters are there to fulfill the writer's story. On the other hand, the writer's job is to make the story fit the character's character.
Right.
And that is always the delicate balance between ongoing stories.
And that is a problem when you do something like Wentworth, where they're trying to make all these very twisty, turny stories. Oftentimes you end up but they choose to bend characters to be able to, because it is a very, very twisted web that they weave. So now, next episode, much to our delight, we're going to have an episode packed with the freak, unless the trailer is just focusing on the freak, but there will still be other things. I don't know.
If she isn't the freak, I'll be happy. If she's...
Well, I think what we will be first of all, we'll be getting a lot of the reaction from Vera, Will, and Jake, who are now finding out. So we're going to get that aspect of things. It seems like Joan herself is not yet responsive, but I don't know in what way. I guess flashbacks. We're going to from the preview, it seems like we're going to get the backstory of how she.
I hope so, because
climbed
that I would
out.
find interesting, if unbelievable.
Well, so that's the key. It will be interesting if they actually make it work. And I did a little bit of an Instagram poll to see what you thought. What is the chance that the writers are actually going to make it work? It seems pretty consistent throughout from 1 hour to the next as the votes came in, that it's about 2/3 of you who are thinking that there's no way that they're going to be able to make it work to your satisfaction.
Don't forget, she did
Except
have
David, of course.
She did take a scissors with her. We saw it. I didn't see it.
remember that.
No, we didn't see it in the first part, but I saw it when they did the flashback.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
So,
we'll see if you remember.
Maybe I
correctly.
remembered incorrectly. I have this whole scenario in my head that she's going to pretend to have amnesia,
Well, we said that,
and
yeah.
all of these people are going to be afraid. What's she going to do? What's she going to do? What's she going to do?
And then she'll just ask, "Where's my knitting?"
Yeah, and then they'll relax,
And then she will come back, and it will turn out that she's just pretending.
right, to get them off guard, and she'll have some terrible.
Well, again, to me, the biggest annoyance is that is probably how we're going to spend not all, but every Talking Teal for the rest of the season. We're probably going to go with, is she pretending? Is it real? Is she coming back? Is she going to, what's she going to do next? And I don't want to. I don't want to be doing that. But we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us. Who knows?
Anyway, you had a lot to say about this episode that many of
As
you
it
said
turns
was
out.
boring. So
Yeah.
it turns out it wasn't so boring. It just wasn't
It was
exciting.
And then there
But
were.
it was interesting. There were
And there were a lot of
subtleties.
disappointing things, though. There were a lot of disappointing things. But again, this is only episode 3. And if we
It's a
can,
complex
in
show.
my mind, if I can skip episode 4 and get to episode 5, and Sheila finally gets there, and other exciting things happen, then
Well, I hope Sheila's in next season, because otherwise she's only going to be in 5 episodes.
I hope so too.
6.
I hope so too. Anyway, ladypartsvlog@gmail.com. You know what to do. We hope to get a very exciting episode, despite all odds from the
Thank
preview.
you for great contributions anyway.
Thank you. And, even if your email is, "Oh my God, I hated this episode," send it. And then of course you'll end up writing a whole email. But, don't stop yourself from telling me that you hated it, because that's also input that's
Yes,
important.
that's opinion.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us for another very long Talking to You. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.